Although this lecture focuses mainly on the wisdom literature, I would like to give a brief introduction to the poetic literature. The books of poetry include Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Songs. Other than some narrative elements present at the beginning and the end of Job and Ecclesiastes, these 5 books are almost entirely composed of poetry. They covered a wide variety of functions, ranging from wisdom instruction to the liturgical and personal prayers, hymns, and worship of Israel, that is in the book of Psalms. These beautiful, passionate, and often deeply personal poetic writings are a reflection of the hearts of the writers and the heart of God. Throughout the book of Psalms, God, who is the great King, inspires the psalmist words of lament and praise that are appropriate responses to God. As for the Song of Songs, it celebrates intimate human love as a gift and also as a key to understand God's own love for His people. Among these books, Proverbs, Job, and Ecclesiastes, also called as Qohelet, are the wisdom books in Jewish and Protestant Bibles. The wisdom literature of the Bible had its own unique voice and theology. Now let's take a look at the characteristics of the wisdom literature. First of all, Job, Proverbs, and Ecclesiastes are all concerned with wisdom, which is a shared vocabulary of these books. From the table, we can see the various forms of wisdom, that is Chokmah, Chacham, Chokmot, being used frequently across these 3 books. Most importantly, God is considered the source of wisdom. Secondly, wisdom is concerned with the issue facing humanity in general, the typical and recurring aspects of life that face human beings on a daily basis. It is humanistic because the wisdom literature is concerned with what is good for human beings. Thirdly, it is experiential, for it is rooted in careful observation of life. Proverbs chapter 6, verses 6 to 11 is a good example. Go to the end, you lazy bones, consider its ways, and be wise. Without having any chief or officer or ruler, it prepares its food in summer and gathers its substance in harvest. How long will you lie there, O lazy bones? When will you rise from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. And poverty will come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed warrior. The sage knows well from life experience that laziness leads to poverty. Therefore, they urge lazy people to consider the ways of the ants. Fourthly, in the Old Testament wisdom books, there is an absence of Israelite things. What are they? You don't see history promised to the patriarchs, the Exodus, and Moses, Sinai covenant, Davidic covenant, etc. The focus is on interpersonal relationships, as well as reflective questions about the meaning of life and how to live it. Fifthly, the ancient Egyptian and Mesopotamian materials provide a helpful, wider context for understanding the biblical wisdom books. For example, parallels can be found between the book of Proverbs and the Egyptian material and many mope. Then Ecclesiastes shares some commonalities with the Mesopotamian tale, that is, Epic of Gilgamesh. Then, the book of Job bears similarities to the Babylonian Job in addressing the issue of suffering. The wisdom literature teaches us how to live out our lives and faith well in a practical way. It can deal with the big, lofty issues such as the problem of evil, while others address more mundane matters from a practical standpoint with common sense. Then let's take a look at the purpose of the 3 wisdom books. The book of Proverbs teaches us to seek wisdom. It shows us that God's wisdom can guide us through our lives. Proverbs personifies this wisdom as Lady Wisdom and attempts to show us that anyone can access this wisdom by fearing God. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. It's the key theme of the whole book of Proverbs. In sum, the purpose of Proverbs is teaching us how to live a life of fearing God. And what about the Ecclesiastes? In Ecclesiastes, the wisdom teacher, that is Qohelet, reveals what he has discovered about the meaninglessness of every human endeavor without God at the center of one's life. Without God, even pursuing human wisdom, seeking pleasure, and toiling to accumulate things do not lead to a meaningful life, especially under the harsh reality of death and human inability to know the future. Ecclesiastes provides instruction on how to live meaningfully, purposefully, and joyfully under the reign of God, primarily by placing God at the center of one's life, work, and activities, by contentedly accepting one's divinely appointed lot in life, and by reverently trusting in and obeying the Creator King. How do you trust God even when life isn't fair and you suffer for no reason? Job's story invites us to consider what it means that God runs the world by wisdom and how this truth can bring peace in dark times. The book of Job teaches us how to live our lives with integrity in face of suffering and to trust in God for His power, wisdom, and grace, even without knowing the reasons behind our suffering. The 3 wisdom books, Proverbs, Job, and Ecclesiastes, teach us how to live our lives in different situations. Therefore, listening carefully to the wisdom traditions as Scripture may help us bring an earthly balance to our tendency to be preoccupied with the metaphysical and supernatural as a way to live life daily.